The frost lay heavy on the fields that morning, a silver crust over dying cornstalks and broken fences. Elias Crow pulled his coat tighter, boots crunching the ground as his breath fogged the air. He'd seen stray dogs around before, thin, half-wild things that came from the hills. But this one was different. It lingered by his barn, ribs sharp against patchy fur, eyes too steady, too knowing. Elias cursed under his breath, reached for a stone and hurled it. The dog didn't flinch. It only stared at him, tail tucked low, as if guarding something behind the hay bales. And in that stare, Elias felt the strange chill of being the one hunted. If you find yourself drawn into stories like these, haunting, human, and true to life, stay with me. There will always be more waiting for you here. The dog's ribs caught the light like prison bars. Elias stood frozen a moment longer, the stone slipping from his hand into frost. The animal should have run. It should have slunk back in the woods like all the others, but it stayed, a low whine escaping its throat. Elias spat into the dirt. "Go on, get out of here," he muttered. His voice was hard, but something in his chest had softened without his permission. The farm had been in slow ruin for years. Once, the Crow land stretched wide, acres of corn and wheat bending in golden waves. Now the soil gave little but weeds. The machinery stood rusting in the barn, and the bank had sent its second letter last week. Elias had no place in his world for pity, not for strays, not for himself. But the dog didn't move. Instead, it took 2 careful steps back, pressing against the gap between the hay bales stacked by the barn wall. Its eyes flicked there, then back to Elias, almost pleading. "Damn thing's hiding something," Elias whispered. He edged closer, his boots scraping frost. The dog's ears flattened, its growl low and desperate. Elias raised his hand slowly, not in kindness but caution, like approaching a live wire. The smell hit him first, not the musk of wet fur, but something sour, metallic, alive in its rot. Elias reached the bales and pulled one free. Behind it, shadow pooled thick and black. The dog lunged forward as if to block him, then whimpered, tail striking dirt in panic. Out of the way, Elias hissed. He yanked another bale aside. What he saw froze him cold. A tattered blanket spread over the ground, and beneath it, the faintest movement. Something small, something breathing. The dog whined louder now, pawing at the blanket with frantic care. Elias crouched, his calloused hand trembling as he lifted the edge. A child, no more than 4, cheeks hollow with hunger, eyes half closed but still flickering beneath lashes. Dirt streaked her hair, and her lips were cracked from thirst. She clutched the dog's matted fur with one tiny hand, as though he were the only thing keeping her alive. Elias staggered back, heart slamming his ribs. Sweet Lord above. The child stirred, coughed weakly, and tried to curl tighter against the dog's flank. The dog nosed her gently, then turned its eyes back to Elias, pleading, accusing, unrelenting. For a long moment, Elias couldn't breathe. The frost, the ruin of his farm, the weight of all his failures, they seemed to collapse into this one impossible image, a starving child guarded by a starving dog, hidden in his barn like a secret meant to destroy him. His first thought was practical, brutal. Not my problem. Call the sheriff. Let the state deal with her. But another voice, quieter, older, rose inside him. The voice of his late wife, Clara, who used to leave bowls of milk on the porch for strays. Don't you turn away from suffering, Elias. You've seen enough of it to know what it costs. His throat burned. "What the hell am I supposed to do with you?" he whispered. The child stirred again, eyes opening just enough to catch him. They were pale blue, impossibly clear, and in them Elias saw not recognition, but fear. Not of the dog, not of her hunger, but of him. That fear cut deeper than any debt or failing crop. Elias stumbled back toward the farmhouse, every step heavy. His mind spun with questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was she here in his barn, with his dog that had guarded her as if she were its own? But beneath all of that, one thought beat hardest of all. Someone had left her there. Someone who knew she might not survive the night. The kitchen smelled faintly of burned coffee and wood smoke. Elias Crow stood over the sink, staring at the cracked porcelain as if answers might surface in the dishwater. His hands, roughened by years of soil and calluses, trembled slightly when he reached for the chipped mug. The image from the barn wouldn't leave him. The child curled beneath the blanket, the dog pressing against her like a shield. He had seen hunger before. He had felt it in lean winters when his own stomach gnawed. But hunger like that in a child's eyes, it carried something unbearable, a mirror of failure that belonged to everyone who walked past and did nothing. He forced himself to drink the bitter coffee, but it only thickened the guilt in his throat. The barn door creaked in the distance. Elias jolted, setting the mug down too hard. He grabbed his coat from the peg and strode outside, boots sinking into the frost-softened earth. The dog stood at the barn's entrance now, half in shadow, half in morning light. It didn't run when Elias approached, only bristled and growled low. The child was still inside. He could sense her presence like a hidden flame. "All right," he muttered, holding his hands open. "I ain't gonna hurt her." The dog's growl eased, but its eyes stayed sharp, watching every step. Inside the barn, the girl stirred beneath the blanket. Elias crouched, his knees popping with age, and studied her closer. Dirt clung to her skin, but beneath the grime was a fine-boned face, fragile as glass. She wasn't just neglected, she was abandoned. He reached for the canteen at his belt, uncapped it, and tilted it gently against her lips. The water spilled, but some of it slipped inside. Her throat worked weakly. "There you go, little one," he murmured, voice roughened by something he couldn't name. The dog edged closer, sniffing, then licked a drop from the girl's chin before resting its head on her lap. Its ribs rose and fell in shallow rhythm, protective even in exhaustion. Elias sat back against the hay bales, staring. He needed to call someone, the sheriff, the county, hell, anyone who might know what to do. But the thought of Sheriff Collier's cruiser pulling into his yard twisted his gut. Collier was a man who liked simple answers. Stray kid? Put her in foster care. Dog? Put it down. Elias rubbed his jaw. Maybe that's the right thing. Maybe it's the only thing. But when the girl coughed again, clutching the dog tighter, he knew he couldn't let Collier touch either of them. Not yet. He stood, heading back toward the house. "Stay put," he muttered to the air, unsure if he meant the girl or himself. The kitchen clock ticked toward noon when the knock came. Sharp, insistent. Elias stiffened, wiping his hands on a rag before opening the door. Sheriff Collier stood there, broad-shouldered, mustache bristling like wire. His gaze swept past Elias into the dim kitchen. "Morning, Crow," Collier said. "Mind if I come in?" Elias forced a shrug. "Depends what for." Collier stepped forward anyway, boots tracking mud. "Got word there'd been folks wandering. Some drifters seen near the old mill road. Thought I'd check if they came sniffing around your property." Elias kept his face still, though his heartbeat thudded painfully. "Ain't seen no one." Collier's eyes narrowed. "Strange. Some say a kid was with them. You sure you haven't seen?" "No." Elias cut him off, firmer this time. "Just me and the crows out here." The silence stretched. Collier's eyes pinned him, searching for cracks. Elias swallowed hard, but held his ground. Finally, Collier grunted. "All right, just keep your eyes open. Strange times when kids get dragged along with vagrants. Never ends well." He tipped his hat and stepped back onto the porch. "You need anything, Crow, you call me. You know I don't much care for surprises." The words lingered long after the cruiser's engine faded down the road. Elias shut the door, leaned against it, and exhaled. His hands shook. The sheriff already knew there was a child somewhere nearby. If word got out she was in his barn, everything would spiral. Questions, accusations, maybe worse. He thought of the letters from the bank, the whispers in town about him losing the land. One more burden, one more secret. And people would say he'd finally broken. He rubbed his eyes, fighting the thought. That evening, he carried a plate of food into the barn. Dry bread, a little salted pork, half an apple. The girl sat up weakly when she smelled it. Her eyes widened, almost panicked, as if the food might vanish before she touched it. "Easy," Elias said softly, tearing the bread into smaller pieces. He offered one to her, but she hesitated, glancing at the dog. The animal nudged her, then looked at Elias. A strange truce hung between them. The man who owned the barn and the dog who owned her trust. Finally, the girl reached out, snatched the bread, and shoved it into her mouth. She chewed too fast, nearly choking. Elias poured water into a tin cup, holding it out until she drank. Slow down. There's more if you need. The words felt foreign on his tongue, gentle, patient, like echoes of the man he had been before Clara's death, before the farm began to rot. The girl's lips parted. A sound came, cracked and thin. Thank you. Elias froze. Her voice was barely there, but it struck him like thunder. She could speak. What's your name, little one? He asked, his tone gentler still. She stared at him, then shook her head quickly, clutching the dog. Her eyes darted toward the barn door, filled with a fear too sharp for a child. Elias frowned. It's all right. Nobody's going to hurt you. But she pressed her face into the dog's fur, refusing another word. Elias sat back, unsettled. Children that age didn't hide their names, unless someone had taught them to. Someone she was running from. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch with the lantern low, watching the fog roll in from the fields. The silence felt different now, charged, as if the land itself was listening. He thought of the girl's eyes, the way she clung to that dog as though the world itself was dangerous. He thought of Collier's sharp stare and the lies he'd already told. The truth pressed heavier with every breath. This wasn't some stray kid who wandered off. This was something else, something that would bring trouble to his doorstep. He could give her up tomorrow, wash his hands, pretend he never saw her. But he knew he wouldn't. He couldn't. Elias Crow, a man who had let too much slip through his fingers already, wasn't about to let go of this. Not yet. And somewhere deep in the barn, the dog lifted its head from the straw and stared toward the farmhouse, eyes glowing faint in the lantern light, watching, as if it understood every choice Elias made. By the time dawn came, Elias knew two things. The girl was running from someone, and whoever it was, they would come looking. The morning broke gray and heavy, clouds dragging across the hills like torn cloth. Elias Crow moved through the barn with a lantern, his breath ghosting in the cold air. The girl was awake, sitting straighter now, her hand buried in the dog's fur. The animal's ribs were still sharp, but its eyes were steady, watchful. Elias set down a small plate of food. The girl reached for it immediately, though she paused to feed the dog first. A scrap of bread pushed gently toward its mouth. Only then did she eat. Elias watched, a knot tightening in his chest. You take care of him, don't you? The girl didn't answer, but the dog licked her hand once, then fixed Elias with a look so clear it felt almost human. He crouched low, trying again. Sweetheart, I need to know who you belong to. Somebody must be missing you. Her little shoulders tensed. She shook her head violently, eyes darting to the barn door. That fear again. Did someone hurt you? He asked softly. The girl froze. Tears welled, spilling silently down her dirty cheeks. She clung tighter to the dog, who pressed against her protectively, a low rumble in its throat. Elias's breath hitched. Whoever she was running from, it wasn't some neglectful parent or careless drifter. It was something darker. By noon, the wind carried the sound of an engine on gravel. Elias stepped onto the porch, pulse hammering. A dust trail curled up the road. Sheriff Collier's cruiser. He swore under his breath, running a hand over his unshaven jaw. The cruiser stopped at the gate. Collier climbed out, adjusting his belt, his eyes cold as slate. Crow, he called. Need a word. Elias met him halfway down the path. What's the trouble? Collier's smile didn't reach his eyes. Got reports. Folks say they saw you talking to someone out on the edge of town yesterday. Thin little girl with a stray dog. Elias's stomach dropped. Rumors, he muttered. Rumors spread when there's truth in them, Collier said, stepping closer. Best you tell me straight. You know what happens if I find out you're harboring someone and lying about it. Elias stiffened. Ain't harboring nobody. Collier studied him for a long, hard moment. Then his eyes shifted toward the barn. The air thickened. Elias felt the ground tilt beneath him. Before Collier could move, The barn door creaked open. The girl stood there, barefoot in the straw, the dog at her side. Her eyes, blue and terrified, locked on the sheriff. "Jesus," Collier muttered. His surprise wasn't shock. It was recognition. The girl gasped, shrinking back. The dog growled, teeth bared. Elias turned slowly toward the sheriff. "You know her." Collier's jaw tightened. "She ain't yours to keep, Crow." The truth struck Elias like lightning. The fear in the girl's eyes when he'd asked about her name. The way she clung to silence. The dog's relentless guard. It wasn't strangers she was hiding from. It was him. Elias moved without thinking, stepping between Collier and the barn. "What did you do?" His voice cracked with rage. Collier's face hardened. "Careful now. That child's not your business." "Not my business?" Elias spat. "She was half dead in my barn. That dog's the only thing keeping her alive. You tell me why, Collier. You tell me right now." The sheriff's hand twitched near his holster. "You don't want to know." The silence between them was sharp as glass. Then the girl's voice broke it, small but piercing. "He locked me." Elias turned, heart lurching. She was trembling, clutching the dog. "In the shed," she whispered. "He said no one would find me." The words hit harder than any blow. Elias stared at Collier, bile rising in his throat. "You bastard." Collier's eyes darkened. "Watch it, Crow. You don't know what you're meddling with." But Elias did. He saw it now. The reason Collier had sniffed around so hard, the reason he didn't want the girl's name spoken. The sheriff hadn't been looking for her safety. He'd been looking to cover his own sins. The standoff broke in a flash. Collier lunged forward, but the dog exploded into motion, teeth snapping. Collier cursed, stumbling back as the animal tore into his sleeve. "Run!" Elias shouted. The girl bolted into the field, the dog hot on her heels. Collier ripped his arm free, drawing his gun. Elias grabbed his wrist, shoving the weapon aside. "You'll shoot through me first." They grappled, the weight of years pressing into Elias's bones. Collier was stronger, but Elias's fury lent him a savage strength. They crashed against the porch rail, the gun skidding into the dirt. "Why her?" Elias growled, fist tightening. "Why the hell a child?" Collier's lip curled. "Because nobody was looking. Nobody ever looks." The confession chilled Elias deeper than the frost ever could. The sheriff shoved him back, scrambling for the gun, but before his hand closed around it, a snarl split the air. The dog barreled into him, teeth sinking deep into his forearm. Collier screamed, the weapon clattering away. Elias seized it. Hands shaking, chest heaving, he aimed. The sheriff froze, blood streaking his sleeve. The dog crouched low beside him, teeth red. Elias's finger hovered on the trigger. Killing Collier would be justice, but it would also damn him, tie his soul to a darkness he'd fought all his life. His hand trembled, then lowered. "No, you don't get to take me with you." Collier sneered, clutching his arm. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," Elias said, "but not today." By dusk, the sheriff was gone, driven off bleeding, stripped of his gun but not destroyed. Elias knew Collier would return. Men like him didn't slink away forever. But for now, the farm was quiet. The girl sat by the kitchen stove, wrapped in a blanket, steam rising from a bowl of broth Elias had made. She ate slowly, her eyes still darting, but some of the terror had ebbed. The dog lay at her feet, head resting on her toes, eyes half closed with exhaustion. Elias sat across the table, watching them. He felt hollowed out, but not empty. More like something had been carved open inside him, raw and unfinished. The girl glanced up at him. "Will you keep us safe?" Elias swallowed hard. The farm was crumbling, the debts mounting. He had nothing left to give except himself. "Yeah," he said softly. "I will." Her eyes lingered on him, searching. Then, for the first time, she gave a small nod. The dog thumped its tail once against the floorboards, a sound as quiet as it was resolute. The frost came again that night, silvering the broken fields. Elias stood on the porch, lantern low, listening to the steady breathing inside the house. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the land's silence pressing him down. The child had brought danger. The dog had brought truth. But together, they had also brought him something else, a reason not to turn away. He lifted his face to the cold wind, his eyes wet, and whispered into the night, "Clara, I won't fail this time." And from inside, the faint sound the dog's bark answered back, steady, watchful, unbroken.